As we know, the reason that the West isn't corrupt is because the actual corruption is just legalized. We have settled, we've tamed the corruption that we used to have in the 19th century. And the thing is that money over time will tame corruption, because people will grow up benefiting from a system and therefore have faith in it and desire to see it perpetuated, which they understand is undermined by corruption. Corrupt individuals act because they have no faith the system is going to benefit them, which is why in emerging democracies and in crisis-ridden economies, corruption is endemic, because there's no reason to trust the system at all. So by these guys' own lights, none of these systems would actually give the sort of broad-based prosperity that they were promising if people were corrupt. But the thing is, the only people who are going to go along with gutting their countries' economies and destroying every mechanism for democratic accountability of the economy are going to be motivated by money. What else is going to motivate them? They don't have a religious faith in this shit. They haven't been conditioned in it. When the Soviet Union fell, the U.S. had this remit. We're going to create a non-corrupt government that is going to dismantle all public ownership and watch the standard of living of their fellow citizens collapse down a fucking sewer. Who is going to do that out of noble fucking urges? Who is going to do that out of nobility of the heart? Yeah, a few like totally brainwashed Randian ideologues, but most people are only going to do it if it benefits them in the very near term, because they know that they're fucking destroying the fucking foundations of their own social order. They just don't care. And that happened in every fucking country that the struggling and post-communist and post-colonial that had to accept these structural adjustments. The only people agreeing to do it in these countries are fucking crooks. And then, oh no, there's no broad-based prosperity. Of course, you know, neoliberals will talk about reducing poverty in the 20th century, all in China, all in the last 30 years, nowhere else. A little bit, but mostly stagnant, if not declining, everywhere else. Oh, that's because of corruption. We didn't want that. But corrupt officials are the only ones who are going to carry out your policy. So there's this fake charade of imposing anti-corruption measures on these countries. But that's just to get PR to reassure the markets, to pat them on the back and say your money's safe there. But because, you know, corrupt people are, at the end of the day, disciplined by the dollar, disciplined by the deepest pocket, there's no worry that they're going to go against the greater interests of capitalism. And the U.S. actually used anti-corruption as an excuse for why they did not offer a bailout to Russia when they had a economic crisis in the late 90s, along with a bunch of other countries. And we'll talk in the next chapter talks about it, and we'll end talking about Russia and why they were different than all the other big countries, big crisis countries that got hit in the 90s by financial panics. But the stated argument was, you're not doing enough anti-corruption, which is hilarious. The only person who would have done what Yeltsin did, sell his country down the river for global capitalism that he could not have believed in, is because he was a fucking drunk scumbag. Because he was a pirate. That's the only person you're going to get to do that job. Poor Gorbachev, poor pure believer Gorbachev had to go down the chute. He wouldn't have been corrupt, but tough shit. He wouldn't have done it. He got pushed out to the fucking door because he couldn't recognize the moment. You either had to fight that thing or you had to submit to it. And the only ones fighting were the delusional communists who got shelled out of the Duma by Yeltsin in his coup. And everybody that he got on his side, both in the coup and then in the 96 re-election, was bought and paid for by U.S. dollars. And that's why, starting in the late 90s, Russia drifts out of the American orbit, because it's just not working. The benefits aren't accruing to capitalism for its perpetuation in the country. So it becomes a gangster state ruled over by an oligarchy because those are the only people who give a shit.